Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And today we're here to talk about marketing and how to get your company so that you are well known, your brand is well known, and you're able to attract and acquire customers. So we're here with a great friend, Gemma Adair from Riata Consulting. Welcome, Gemma.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Delighted to be here.
Well, as I mentioned, our audience are companies that are expanding into the U.S. and they're looking to really understand how to grow quickly in the U.S. market. And maybe before we kind of start into our topic today, is if you wouldn't mind, maybe just take a moment and share a little bit about what you do at Riata to help companies expand into the U.S.
Sure. So Riata helps Microsoft partners that focus on sort of within the business application space. You talk about the ISVs, the SI partners that are really just struggling to generate leads, qualified leads to kind of feed their funnel and pipeline, but also how they can leverage multi-channel marketing and the partner ecosystem to really kind of scale and go to market.
Gotcha. So you help them sort of navigate that process so that the Microsoft partners you're working with can much more effectively utilize their resources to attract customers.
Most definitely, most definitely. I think that's a big thing, really to utilize the resources, really understand what's happening in the market, what channels and routes to markets available to them, and really kind of leverage everything that it gives you. So it's really important for them to kind of just scale and grow, but I think most importantly, be sustainable, whether that's in the US market or in other markets.
Sure. Yeah. Job one is be sustainable, right? You have to be here tomorrow. Well, let's hop into it. So, you've been working with companies expanding for a long time, and I guess, there are so many areas where companies can struggle in that process. But where do you see, if you had to think about sort of the number one area where companies expanding, and again, particularly into the U.S., where is that? What do they do that it particularly challenges them in terms of expansion?
Well, I would say, first of all, tech founders start tech companies. So they're really sort of versed. They understand the tech. They know the insides and outs. They're very passionate about the tech that they're either selling or building. And I think what tends to happen, or what I see, is there's that kind of education around, well, what is marketing? What's the strategy? What's the go-to-market? Tech is one thing, but it's actually growing that and getting it into the market. And that's where I see there's of no fault of anyone's. It's just how it is. But just giving them that support and that education around how to kind of really fill that gap, that gray area that they lack knowledge in, and they need the support in.
So I guess, because we see it, I'm not sure if we're thinking or talking about the same thing, but one of the things we see is that quite often tech founders, in particular, will tend to talk about in their marketing or on their website. They'll talk about their product and the features of the product and the sort of the things that were remarkable to develop, as opposed to talking about the customer benefit. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Definitely, as well. That would be probably a second point to kind of really, it's overly technical. The messaging can be overly technical. Their go-to-market can be overly technical, and they're trying to sell to that end user, that business user. It can be across the mix, technical and business user, but really their messaging needs to be around, well, how does that tech help that end user? What is the business outcome for that organization if they embed that tech or get that solution from that partner? So it's really about sort of talking their language, not the language that they know.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a very different language. And it's funny because we often think of a language as, we have English, we have French, we have Spanish, and so on. But yeah, there's a whole different language between sort of often the seller and the consumer, right? There's a very different interests, and very different appeals. Yeah,
Most
no, I totally get it.
most definitely. Now, I think as well the sales cycle for within tech is within business applications, as I know it, is extremely long. It's a long sales cycle. So you really want to kind of, streamline, the messaging and really get to the point in terms of those business outcomes, and reduce that sales cycle somewhat.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you do that as you're working with a client? How do you help them go through that process? Because as you said, there's some education, there's some, there's a variety of steps. But how would you do that?
So what I tend to do is really kind of understand from a business perspective what that founder or startup is trying to achieve. And really at that point in time of their business journey, given that they are a startup, is really to understand, the people. So them as individuals, as leaders, but also what people do they have, what resource do they have on the ground to actually execute. Another thing to look at is the processes. What processes do they have in place? Where are the gaps in both their knowledge, the processes set up, but also the tech? So what tech is in place to really kind of enable them to execute? I look at both long term, but I also look at what are the quick wins that founder or startup can achieve. It's not about let's throw money at something. It's about what could we do today that will move the dial slightly and be in a better place tomorrow or that week, and obviously look longer term. How can we scale and grow and kind of create campaigns and programs that are going to be effective for that business at that point in their journey? And I think that's what's really key. Where are they at the point in that journey, in that cycle?
Right. And maybe even how much have they invested already in what they've done. Yeah. So how important is testing in the process? Do you get involved in sort of dual message testing?
Yeah, so I think where A/B testing comes at where maybe the organization is slightly a bit more mature in terms of maybe they've tried some marketing, some testing of marketing. They might have done an event, a campaign of sorts, that kind of thing. When I work or support an organization, I really strip all the layers back. So I really want to get into the detail about what's worked, what hasn't, what's the messaging that's been used before. So before that A/B testing is carried out, it's more of a kind of an audit as to what have you done before, what's worked, what hasn't. Potentially they're targeting the wrong personas or target audience, right? A/B testing is, I look at that where you're trying to with the content, you're trying to test the content. So you really have an understanding, that basis, the fundamentals before you A/B test. So there's a lot of groundwork that needs to happen before you get into A/B testing.
Right.
And that's my experience working with a lot of different partners to really understand their business and what do they want to tell their audience, and how does that speak to their challenges, their problems.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. So it sort of thinking of the various founders that you've worked with, and obviously some are more successful and sort of evolve quicker. What would you say is when you think about the ones that have been most successful, what attributes do they have in common?
Well, I would say just initially, I think having an open mind, to marketing as a whole and seeing that marketing and sales has to be aligned. They have to come together. You can't do one without the other, and you have to bring the two together. And I think it's having an open mind to, let's try this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with having some form of strategy behind it. It's not about just doing the tactical drive, because that's where you'll lose money. You'll lose time, you'll lose resource, and you'll waste money with it. But it's really about that open mind, that mindset, the just having that, let's try something. Let's get some marketing off the ground. Again, doesn't have to be a cost. It can go back to the quick wins that I've just mentioned earlier, but it doesn't have to be a cost. Be open-minded. And I think what's really key as well, it's not only the marketing person or consultant that markets the business. It's everybody within the organization that markets that business. And I think where leaders kind of are successful is that they bring everyone on the journey with them, particularly when they're in, it's so critical when they're at that startup phase, even when you're scaling, to really kind of set the foundation and bring everyone on that journey with you, because everyone is responsible for marketing the company that they're in. So yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So having that open mind. Yeah. No, that is so important. And it's funny because often we'll kind of evaluate sort of ego in terms of how important that is. And clearly you wouldn't leave your country, you wouldn't expand beyond your town if you didn't have some level of ego. So it's important, but if it's so strong that you're not open-minded, then you lose this, whether it's customer input or team member input or whatnot. So yeah, no, it very much understand the limitations of ego and the importance of being open-minded for sure. But
definitely. Yep. And I think as well, without there's no just it's all about the team. So if you are looking to expand, let's say in the US market, you need to have that strong team behind you, the strong foundations, in order for you to move your business elsewhere or grow within a different market altogether. So it's just really important to get those fundamentals right and in the right place,
Gemma, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate you taking the time today. And I think your ideas and what you've shared are going to be so valuable to our audience. Do you mind if I share your contact details in the description below?
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.